Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Is welcome you once again on this Thursday evening. It is the night of Jummah as we welcome you to the airwaves of Salam Media on the various platforms of Salam Media on this Thursday evening. And this is another special broadcast brought to you courtesy of Salam Media. And we are still continuing with the focus on what is happening in Palestine. The madness still continues, the genocide, the brutality without fail, and it is non-stop, it is relentless. As we bring you this evening Dr. Mats Gilbert, who is a Norwegian physician, a humanitarian, an activist, a politician, and also a professor of emergency medicine at the University of Tromsø. Now, Dr. Mats Gilbert has a broad range of experience from international humanitarian work, and since the 1970s, he's been working actively with solidarity work, particularly with Palestine. He has served as a doctor for several periods in the occupied Palestinian territories in Lebanon. He has volunteered at the Al-Shifa hospital in Gaza during Israel's previous bombing campaigns. And many of us will remember Dr. Mats Gilbert joining us in South Africa a few years ago, and he was a guest courtesy of Salam Media. And right now, we're going across to be joined by none other than Dr. Mats Gilbert. Dr. Mats Gilbert, good evening to you. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh and welcome.
Walaikum salam and shukran iktir for having me on the program, my dear brothers and sisters in South Africa. Thank you so much. Good evening.
Yes, we recall your visit to South Africa, and it was a wonderful visit, a highly informative visit, and also at the same time looking at the circumstances which are playing out today. Now, I'm sure, Dr. Mats Gilbert, you're not surprised at the response of the IDF, the Israeli army, but you've been there before. You've been in Gaza over and over again. You've worked in Gaza. And just compared to previous assaults on Gaza, what does it look like this time around for you?
Yeah, thank you for that good question, Inayet. I was in Gaza last time in June this year, actually, for 2 weeks. I was in Gaza in February this year to do teaching at the university, medical students. We're doing research, medical research. I'm working a lot with the local healthcare system to improve the cancer care in Gaza, which is very poor. And I noted again how suffocating the 17 years of siege has been on the life for ordinary people in Gaza. The poverty is ever increasing. The unemployment is around 50%. The habitat, the houses are, reflecting this poverty. 98% of the water is undrinkable, unfit for human use. The electricity outage, the power outage will be like 12 to 14 hours a day. And everything needs to be imported through the siege. Every day there is between 400 and 500 trucks coming to Gaza with, whatever you need to live, food and practical stuff. The self-sufficiency, the food basket in Gaza is very meager. Both due to the fishing restrictions. Gaza is a coastal society, but the fishermen can only go so far out before they meet the Israeli Navy who shoot at them. And also because the agriculture is very diminished and the land is shrunk by the security perimetry along this fence that is fencing in Gaza. So I was thinking in June that I don't know how long they can sustain this extreme living conditions and this feeling of being suffocated, not being allowed to travel, not being allowed to have a safe way if your mother or father or daughter contracts cancer, not having the right to travel to a medical conference or to take a year abroad to have some specialty training. And of course, most of all, very hard to find work. The small businesses and the bigger businesses are all down on their knees because of this siege. So it was a society that was extremely impoverished and extremely drained due to the siege. And then comes this new attack. And it has been the most brutal attack that I have ever seen. And I worked in Gaza with the wounded in 2006, in 2009, in 2014, and 2012. I was also in Beirut in 1982 during the Israeli invasion and the siege and the bombing of Beirut. But believe me, I have never seen anything as immensely brutal and as dangerous as the situation now. We see a whole society being wiped out. The whole human ecology is being wiped out. The villages, the apartment buildings, the water pipeline system, the sewage cleaning system. Yesterday, they bombed 10 of the bakeries in Gaza. They have been bombing hospitals, and 40 hospitals and primary healthcare clinics are out of function now. They have killed 101 medical staff. I believe they have killed 17 journalists. They have extinguished nothing less than 731 Palestinian families, ranging from 5, 6 to 30 family members. And I will come back to the numbers of killed and wounded, but this massive attack on the whole human ecology on the habitat, on the everything we need to live, has forced now UN, I think they say 1.1 million have been fleeing from their homes, either because they got this order to move to the south, or because their house, their block, their neighborhood was bombed, or because they simply feel it's too unsafe to live where they are living now. So they have taken to the roads and gone south, which, by the way, turns out to be just as dangerous as the north. The bombing is going on in the south, which was promised to be a safe place. And it's almost the same numbers of killed and wounded in the south last 24 hours as in the north. Add to that, that this is a very, very young population. The 2.2 million people, Palestinians living in Gaza, are very young. Around 1 million of them are, per definition, children. 68% of the inhabitants are 25 and below. And if you are 17 years or younger today in Gaza, the only thing you have experienced is siege. It is occupation. It is starvation. It's lack of food. It is insecurity, human insecurity. And it is these repetitious attacks that every time kills thousands and will wound tens of thousands. So this is really an extremely painful and dangerous situation. And the young people of Gaza, the children of Gaza, they are really suffering now. So far, according to the official numbers from the Ministry of Health, the Israeli attack on Gaza has killed 2,913 children, almost 3,000 children. Add to that around 800 children are missing because they have been trapped under the rubble of their bombed houses and cannot be retrieved. So we are getting somewhere between 3,800 and 4,000 killed children. Where else in the world is a national army, a state army like the Israeli army allowed to fight a war and to kill 3, 4, 5,000 children in 2 weeks with nobody of the big powers trying to stop them. Among the killed are 1,709 women. Women and children constitute 70% of the wounded and killed in Gaza now. 70% are women and children, civilians. The total number of killed in Gaza now, up till this morning, was 7,028 killed. They are gone. They are martyrs. They are dead. They are lost to their families. But there are many, many more wounded. The total number of war wounded as of this morning was 18,482, almost 18,500 war wounded. Not all of them seriously wounded. Maybe 1/3 can have an outpatient visit to the hospital and be patched up and sent home, but there is no home to go to. But 2/3 of them will probably have injuries that will need hospital treatment. 40% of the hospital capacity is gone in Gaza due to attacks and damage on the hospitals, due to lack of fuel or supplies to run the hospital. And many of the primary healthcare clinics, up to 35, are closed. So where are they going to amend these 18,482 wounded? Among them, mostly children. And let me end by saying the situation in the hospitals in Gaza is dreadful, because not only are they completely filled with wounded who needs care, comforting, treatment, surgery, fluids, water to drink, food to eat, washing, cleanliness, which is an enormous task for any well-functioning system. I hope there are some colleagues of mine in South Africa listening to this and imagining what would one of your cities do if you had suddenly had 18,500 war wounded. It's beyond comprehension. In addition to this large number of wounded and their families, of course, many of them are children, so they will all have their families with them. The hospitals in Gaza have now become refuge, shelter for all of those homeless, those 1.5 million who are now wandering around without a home, without a house, either because it's bombed or because they have left it because of the threats of bombing. Tens of thousands of these homeless have seeken shelter in Mustashfa al-Quds, in the Jerusalem hospital in Gaza City, run by the Red Crescent, in Mustashfa al-Shifa, the big trauma center, Shifa Hospital, Shifa Medical Complex, central Gaza City, in Mustashfa al-Aqsa in the south, in the Gaza European Hospital in the south, and the other still operating hospitals. So every corridor, every waiting room, every emergency room is filled with these three groups: the wounded, the family of the wounded, and the refugees seeking safety and shelter. But unfortunately, there is no safe place in Gaza today, and I am shivering when I'm thinking about what will be the next moves by the occupiers.
Yes. Now, Dr. Gilbert, we know the people of Palestine, and you know them better than I do, particularly those in Gaza, where they've been known for their resilience, to be able to withstand. And as you mentioned, extreme in every way, in every sense, in terms of the numbers, the statistics that you quoted, the carnage, the brutality, the genocide that's unfolding, all of it. And the question is, Can a nation withstand this brutality and the resilience of the Palestinians at this point in time of major concern that, well, how much longer can they actually hold out?
I think you, as South Africans, have a better platform and a better historical background to answer that question because you have been a lighthouse to the colonized and oppressed people of the world when it comes to resisting colonialism and resisting the politics of elimination, which we are seeing unfolding in Gaza now. You know what it took for you through the centuries, through the long march towards a freedom from colonialism and apartheid. And you never yielded. You just had to be patient. And your leaders, like Nelson Mandela, never gave up. You were called the terrorists. I believe Nelson Mandela was on the formal terrorist list of the United States State Department until he was 80. So my answer to your question is that the Palestinian people, they have been under occupation for 70 years now, a little bit depending on how you count it. They have been in the diaspora for 70 years. They have been during an increasing colonizing and brutal apartheid regime, getting worse every day. And they have not given up. They have not given up. And I think they will not give up. And the sumud of the Palestinian people, sumud is an Arab word. I've been taught the word by my Palestinian friends. It means steadfastness. And I have understood that sumud is a virtue in the Palestinian psyche, in the Palestinian culture. And I think to answer your question, I will quote some of my medical students. I've been teaching at medical schools in Gaza for 15 years at Al-Azhar University. There are two big universities in Gaza, Al-Azhar and Islamic University, each with around 30,000 students. Brilliant teaching institutions. Medical schools are good. We try to support them with going there as guest professors. And they say, we have no other goal than to live as free people. We will not be enslaved by anybody. And like one of the young medical students, now graduated, told me, I'm not Hamas, I'm not Jihad, but I support the resistance because they are the only ones defending us. And I will be defended, and I will defend myself and my family because I don't see slavery as a solution in my life. I don't want to surrender. I don't want to give away my country. I don't want Israel to expand, grab, steal, and colonize my beloved Palestine. This is what I hear from moderate academics to the janitor in the guest house, to the street vendor, to the young guys, the young children playing in the street. So I think that trying to break the backbone of a people under colonizing rule, under brutal oppression, under occupation, it will not succeed. You will only produce new generations of resisting, hardcore, even more determined generation than what you had before. So there is no end to this before we try to understand and solve the root cause. Look, I'm a medical doctor. I was trained not to treat symptoms, not to give painkiller if a patient has pain in the belly or pain in the chest. Then I need to find out what is the root cause of that pain and try to treat that. It could be a blood clot, it could be an infection, it could be cancer, it could be, something that needs immediate treatment. The root cause, in my opinion, and I'm not alone I'm not the only one thinking that the root cause is what it is in Palestine. It is the occupation. I always end my lectures by saying, this is not a difficult conflict. This is a difficult occupation. And it is illegal according to international law. You're not allowed to occupy another people. And the occupied people has the right to resist the occupiers, also with weapon. Of course, within the framework of the Geneva Convention protecting civilians. The Palestinians are just as much in their right to resist occupation with the means they see fit as the Ukrainian people are in their right to fight the Russian occupation with arms, always within the framework of humanitarian law and the Geneva Convention. I don't support any terror against any civilians, be it from the US Army, from the Ukrainian Army, from the Russian Army, from the Israeli Army, or from the Palestinian resistance. I don't. We need to protect children, women, churches, hospitals, mosques, ambulances, doctors, nurses, paramedics, water pipelines, sewage systems. They shall be protected because the most valuable thing we have is humankind. The problem is that Israel has, for the last 70 years, been violating again and again and again and again international law. When it comes to warfare, when it comes to moving your own population into occupied land and colonize the occupied land, when it comes to the even more, ever more brutal development of an apartheid system, which is now recognized by Amnesty International, B'Tselem, Human Rights Watch. And apartheid is, as you know better than anybody, it's forbidden, it's prohibited in international law and in the UN system. But the problem is that the state of Israel has been developing this colonial system and oppression over the Palestinian people in a way that makes life totally unbearable. And I think that their ultimate goal is actually to get rid of the Palestinian people and to occupy the rest of Palestine, West Bank and Gaza, to have the Eretz Israel, the land of Israel, stretching all over these territories.
Yes, and also, Dr. Gilbert,
yeah,
you know, what you're saying obviously is to wipe out the people of Palestine, and we've seen this term turning Gaza from a concentration camp into an extermination camp, which is exactly what is happening. And the other day, I did an interview where someone mentioned Palestine or the Palestinians. He says, don't look at them just as a nation, look at them as a cause for liberation, a cause for justice, a cause that speaks against oppression, against brutality, against genocide, against degradation, against deprivation. So each and every aspect of their lives. And this is the oceans of injustice that we are talking. And this is the reason why Palestinians represent this cause. But looking at the magnitude of the carnage, the magnitude of the genocide and brutality, does the world or the world leadership truly appreciate the magnitude of what is actually happening?
I'm talking to you from Cairo, the capital of Egypt. I've been in Cairo with my brother and colleague, Dr. Eric Fosse, for 2 weeks. We've been standing here with our equipment ready packed, and we've been applying for the permissions, and we never got the permissions because Sinai is closed and Rafah is closed. So I'm here because I want to go in and support my colleagues and my brothers and sisters in Gaza. I have not given up. I have not given up. God forbid that the occupiers, Israel, is going to kill, starve, thirst, bleed out 2.2 million people. We cannot allow that. They cannot be given free hands to this elimination politics that they are currently imposing on the Palestinian people through their absolutely merciless bombing, siege, and deprivation of basic human needs. But I am hopeful. I'm hopeful that the Palestinians, not only in Gaza, but also in the West Bank and in the diaspora, will resist. But that will require some big sacrifices and actions and deeds from us, from you in South Africa, from the good people of Europe, from the good people of Africa, South America, Asia, from the people of the global South who knows and who have felt and experienced firsthand colonialism and the politics of elimination. These people, our brothers and sisters all over the world, we must now unite more than ever in solidarity, in practical solidarity, and demand from our governments that they put pressure on the nation with the big key to solve this, namely the United States of America. The US support, billions and billions and billions of dollars worth of financial support, arms, military support, is the precondition for the sustained colonial politics of Israel. Palestinians will not give up. They will rather die than waving the white flag, according to my experience. But the hardship they're under now and the lack of any movement towards ceasefire and lifting of the blockade and the entrance of food, water, medicines, and medical staff is worrisome. And we cannot sit on our asses and watch television. We need to get up on our feet now to make demonstrations, to make petitions, to make labor unions decisions, to have broad-based popular movements, to pressure our governments to stand tall and take the necessary precautions and actions in order to make an international broad-based alliance against the extermination of the Palestinian people and the annihilation of Gaza. The politics of elimination cannot be allowed to play out in full daylight under the camera lenses for the whole world to see. The suffering is unimaginable in Gaza now, but the bravery in Gaza is also almost unimaginable. My colleagues, the doctors, the nurses, the paramedics, the young students volunteering, they are showing through their courage today, tonight, last night, last night. They are showing the world the moral compass that we need. Not to desert the wounded, not to desert the needing, not to desert those who are down on their knees temporarily, but to stand by them with your strength, with your hands and your arms and your good heart and say, I'm not going to leave you, brother. I'm not going to leave you, sister. I'm not going to leave you, my child, in this difficult situation. I will use every energy I have, every fiber in my body to support you where I am now. If it's in Durban or Johannesburg or in Oslo or in London or in New York, we need to get together now because solidarity is a mighty weapon. And as Samora Machel said, the first president of Mozambique, he said, solidarity is not an act of charity. It's an act of unity between people fighting on different grounds towards the same objective, a free, democratic, democratic, and equal world for all. And that's what Gaza is all about now. It is, if we are going to turn our backs to the Palestinians and just, sign the like on a petition, or just be idle and lazy and don't do anything, or if we are standing tall and doing whatever we can in our family, in our neighborhood, in our labor union, at the workplace, in our political parties, whatever it is, to articulate that in this critical moment of history, we are not going to overlook a people being exposed to colonial massacres. We are not going to turn our back just because the people of Palestine has a different color or a different language or a different religion. They are our brothers and sisters. We have in Europe a very dark history when it comes to turning our backs to atrocities being perpetrated as they were happening, despite the knowledge that the governments had. They allowed the Nazis to exterminate millions of Jews. It's a horrible crime. It's a horrible crime. We did not live up to the expectations as some sort of moral leaders. Europe never was a moral leader. We must not repeat this giddiness, this willingness to look away because the powers are going to pave the way for more power and more land under their control. So, my friends in South Africa, I admire you so much for all you have achieved. Now it's time for us all to stand tall for Palestine. I will call my...
Well,
Yep.
Dr. Gilbert, we've seen many people standing tall for Palestine, and we've seen protests right across the entire world. People have come out in great numbers to express their disgust at what is taking place with the genocide that is unfolding. But just looking at where you are at this point in time, and as you are waiting to go into Gaza to do what you have to do and what you've done best, and with all sincerity, you've gone out to help the people of Palestine. What is the mood like on the ground where you are in Cairo? Because we know that many of the neighbors, many of the Arab countries, obviously have been calling on the likes of the United States, the United Nations, to do something. But what is the mood like on the ground? We know where the leadership stand on this, but the mood on the ground, I'm sure, is very, very different.
By and large, I think the Arab street, there is absolutely no doubt. They support Palestine. They're outrageous. They are very angry. And they share the pain, and they want it ended. So the Arab street, to call it that, have been demonstrating all over the peninsula and in Northern Africa, in the Maghreb countries, who have known so much oppression and colonialism themselves. We have seen demonstrations in the streets here in Cairo. We see, window panes covered with Palestinian flags. And I guess it was the day before yesterday, there was a big demonstration in Tahrir Square. And there has been demonstrations in many other countries. I listened to the speeches of the Arab leaders during the Cairo Peace Summit the day before yesterday, and I think I heard a new language. But it remains to be seen if these leaders are willing to use their political and economical strength to tell the US and Israel that they have to stop and they have to give the Palestinian people their freedom. That remains to be seen. But I think, as with the European governments and the government of the United States and Canada and Australia, it is the popular pressure that will determine it. Because at the end of the day, what the politicians are mostly preoccupied with is to be re-elected. There were 150,000 people marching in London the other day, despite all the accusations of being anti-Semitic and all that, despite the attempts to prohibit use of Palestinian flags, like in Germany. Thousands and thousands take to the street and say, we don't want this. We don't want this world. We don't want this political system that is depending on oppressing other people. So I think that we will see more of what we have seen, like here in Cairo, many angry people, many supporters of Palestine. I have a T-shirt which says Kuluna Gaza, which in Arab, it's in Arab letters, and it means, of course, we are all Gaza. I get stopped on every corner, every 10 meters. People stop me and give me a thumbs up or a victory sign or a nice clap on my back. So the answer to your question is, it's not much televised, but they are forced to televise it when the demonstrations are big enough, and they are getting bigger and bigger. So my appeal to you all is no manifestation of solidarity with the Palestinian people in Gaza and in the West Bank now is too small. The bigger, the better, but they don't get bigger and they don't get big enough if we are not participating, every one of us. So this is my appeal to you tonight. Be smart, find good ways of making demonstrations so that the media will be attending and report it, and pressure your politicians. They should not be re-elected if they don't stand tall and practical in their politics against the occupation and the bombing of Gaza. They should only be re-elected if they support Palestine.
Well, definitely, and I think South Africa going into an election year next year, Palestine is going to be on an agenda going into the election, and it is definitely going to determine the outcome of the election as well. Dr. Matt Gilbert, thank you very much, sir, for your time with us this evening right here on Salam Media, and hopefully at some point in time we will get to meet you once again in South Africa, inshallah.
Inshallah. Thank you so much for the opportunity, my brother, and thank you for your kind generosity in allowing me time to speak on your show. And I say good night to all the friends and brothers and sisters in South Africa. I have a great admiration for you. Now is the time to act. Kuluna Gaza, free Palestine, stop the bombing of Gaza, open the borders, and allow the Palestinian people to live the same kind of lives as we all long to live.
Well, to all of that, we say inshallah and we say Ameen as well. And hopefully at some point in time, as I said, we'll get to connect once again, and perhaps in South Africa as you did the last time around. But for now, all the best to you, sir, and please take care. Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam.
Dr. Matt Gilbert with us out of Cairo this evening. And as Dr. Gilbert mentioned, he is ready to go into Gaza to do what he does best, the humanitarian work, as an activist, as a politician, as a professor teaching Palestinian students out in Gaza as well. And he's been there recently, so he understands the terrain, he understands the territory, but more importantly, he understands what this genocide is all about and the impact that it is making on the people of Gaza and the people in Palestine in general. And with that, I'm going to be signing off. Once again, it's been an absolute pleasure being in your company with this special broadcast brought to you courtesy of Salam Media. So from myself and the team, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.